All right, so welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're looking at a story from the Bible, and I think this one has some really, really interesting lessons, even for us today. We're talking about the Ark of the Covenant. Now, most folks probably know that this is this sacred chest that represents God's presence.
hmm
But what's interesting is what happens to it after it's captured by the Philistines.
Right. It's not just some lost and found treasure. There are these deeper themes in the story of consequences, divine intervention, even kind of where those boundaries between the sacred and the everyday really are.
So the Philistines,
Yeah.
these guys were famous for being pretty fierce warriors. They managed to capture the Ark, like huge victory, right? Except things get a little weird after that. It's like everything starts to go wrong for them. Plagues, you name it. Suddenly it's like they had this hot potato that they don't know what to do with.
Well, yeah, and it's almost like they've stumbled on something that, well, they weren't supposed to touch, something with power that's just beyond their understanding. And it's at this point that the story takes this really interesting turn, almost toward this sense of humility.
Right, because they realize something's wrong, so they go to their priests and diviners. Think of these as like, well, they're advisors. And the advice is pretty clear. Return the Ark
Yeah.
and make it right.
And that second part's really important because it's not just about giving back what they took. I mean, it's like they realize that they've offended some kind of divine power and they need to make up for it. It's like when you break a priceless antique. Sorry, doesn't really fix that.
Yeah. So they're told to send back a guilt offering, but it's not just, anything. It's very, very specific and symbolic. 5 golden tumors, 5 golden mice, too. Sounds a little strange, but, it actually matches the plagues they're suffering. Almost like they're saying, we get it, we messed up.
Yeah, it's like this tangible way of showing their suffering, a way to acknowledge what's happened because of their actions.
Okay, so then comes how they actually return the Ark. They put it on this cart, and then get this. They hook it up to 2 cows who have never pulled a cart before, and then they just let them go. But the catch is, these cows have calves back home.
Hmm.
I mean, you'd figure maternal instinct would send them right back, right?
Oh, absolutely. But that's not what happens. Instead, they go straight to Beth-shemesh, which is in Israelite territory. And the whole time they're mooing, it's like, oh, procession, to announce the ark's return.
I know. Can you imagine seeing that? It would blow your mind. You've got these cows on this mission, and it makes no sense.
And get this, the Philistine lords are actually following them. They're
Okay.
watching this whole bizarre journey. Talk about an experience that would make you humble, right?
For,
Realizing that there's something going on that's just way, way bigger than you.
for sure. It completely flips their idea of power on its head. Yeah, yeah. And then when the Ark gets back to the Israelites, the people of Beth-shemesh are, well, overjoyed, to put
Right.
it mildly. They're offering sacrifices, celebrating the return of this sacred symbol. They even use the wood from the cart and offer the cows as a burnt offering. Like, the level of gratitude and reverence here is off the charts.
It's a huge welcome home, right?
Yeah.
But there's this shadow hanging over everything because some of the men from Beth-shemesh, they decide to look inside the ark. I guess they were curious, or maybe they weren't being respectful enough. Who knows?
And that's where things go south fast.
Mhm.
They're struck down by God. Like, that act of looking inside has these terrible consequences.
It's a harsh lesson, right? Some boundaries you just don't cross, especially not when it comes to something sacred.
It's such a stark contrast to all that joy and celebration.
Yeah.
So, okay, we have all this, the Philistines and their troubles, this miraculous journey back home, and then boom, tragedy. This story is definitely intense. But I mean, what does it all mean for us today? Like, how do we even connect this to our own lives?
That's a great question. And that's exactly what we'll be digging into next. It's easy to think, ancient history, who cares? But honestly, this story has some really timeless lessons, I think.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What kind of lessons are we talking here? Lay it on me.
Well, the Philistines, right, they finally admitted they messed up by taking the ark. I think that's huge, owning up to your mistakes. We got to do that too, even when it's hard.
Yeah, it's so easy to just blame someone else or make excuses, but it really does take strength to just admit you're wrong sometimes.
It does. And then, it's about making things right too, apologizing, changing your behavior. It all starts with just recognizing you made a mistake.
Okay, owning up to our mistakes, check. What else? I feel like there's got to be more to this story.
Well, think about those cows for a second. They just went on this crazy journey, right? Like something was leading them. Makes you wonder, maybe we're being guided in ways we don't realize.
Okay, you're getting a little woo-woo on me now. But I get what you mean. Like, being open to the possibility that there's I don't know, a bigger plan or something,
Yeah.
even if we can't see the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, pay attention to those weird little coincidences, those gut feelings. Maybe they're trying to tell you something.
So take a chance on something new, even if it's a little scary. I like it.
Now, let's talk about those guys from Beth-shemesh who looked inside the ark. Remember what happened to them?
Yeah, not good. So the lesson is, don't be too nosy.
Well, it's more about respecting boundaries. Like, curiosity is great, but there are some things you just don't mess with, you know? You gotta have respect.
Yeah, like everyone's personal space, their beliefs, all that. There
Yeah.
are just some lines you don't cross.
Right. And then remember how grateful everyone was when the ark came back? All those sacrifices and celebrations? I think there's a big lesson there, too, about appreciating the good things in life.
Gratitude, for sure. It's like when you focus on what you have instead of what you don't, everything feels different.
It really does. And then there's trust. Remember, the Philistines did that whole thing with the cows because they wanted proof of their troubles were because of the ark.
They needed a sign, right? To be sure.
Yeah. And it's okay to want reassurance, but I think their story also shows that you have to trust in something bigger than yourself, even when you're not sure what's going on.
It's like letting go of control, letting go of the need to know everything. Man, that is so hard to do sometimes.
It is. But sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is just say, okay, I don't know what's happening, but I trust it's going to work out.
So we've got taking responsibility, recognizing guidance, respecting boundaries, expressing gratitude, and trusting in something bigger. That's a lot. And it's amazing to me how much all this ancient stuff still applies to our lives today.
It really is. That's why I love these stories. They go way beyond just the time and place they were written in.
So what now? How do we take all this and actually use it in our own lives? That's the real challenge.
That's a great question, and that's exactly what we'll unpack as we wrap up our deep dive today.
So we've been talking about this story of the Ark, the Philistines and all the crazy stuff that happens. But how do we actually, I don't know, use this in our lives today? That's what I'm wondering.
It's like we've found all these amazing jewels, right? But we need to know how to wear them, make them part of our lives.
Exactly. So how do we do that? Let's get specific here.
Okay, well, let's start with owning up to our mistakes. I mean, it can be something small, right? Like forgetting a birthday or messing up at work. But just saying, hey, I messed up and meaning it, that's huge.
Yeah, and then actually doing something about it,
Yeah.
if you can, right? Like apologizing or trying to make things better.
Exactly. It all starts with taking responsibility. Now, what about recognizing guidance? Think about those times when you just, I don't know, get a strong feeling about something, like you should call a friend or maybe take a different way home.
Oh, I totally have those.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like, I don't know, something is leading me in a certain direction, even if it doesn't make sense.
And sometimes those feelings lead to something amazing. Now, respecting boundaries, that's a big one, right? In our relationships, online, even how we approach, like, spiritual stuff.
Yeah, it's about being sensitive to other people, their beliefs. Not everything needs to be examined under a microscope,
Yeah.
Some things are just, well, sacred.
That's a great way to put it. And then there's gratitude. It's so easy to focus on what's wrong, what we don't have, but taking a minute to appreciate the good things, man, that can change everything.
It really can. It's like just enjoying a cup of coffee or telling someone you appreciate them. Simple things, but they make a difference.
And finally, trust. This one can be so tough, especially when things are rough.
Yeah, sure.
It's about accepting that you don't have all the answers, that things will work out even if you don't know how.
So basically you're saying let go of control a little bit, have a little faith. Easier said than done, though.
It is. But sometimes the best thing you can do is just surrender and say, okay, I'm trusting that this is going to be okay.
So looking back on everything we've talked about, this ancient story has so much to teach us about, well, how to live better, more meaningful lives.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Taking responsibility, being open to guidance, respecting boundaries, gratitude, trust, all these things, they matter.
So at everyone listening, I hope you found this deep dive helpful. Take these lessons with you. Let them inspire you. And until next time, happy diving.